Hello, everyone. My name is Philip DeVlieger, and I'm the Vice President of Supplier Diversity at Disability In. And I'm here today to share with you information on Disability In's certification of disability-owned business enterprises. A little bit about Disability In for those of you who may not be aware of our organization. We work with corporate business to empower them to achieve disability inclusion and equality. We have a network of over 450 corporations that expand opportunities for people with disabilities across their entire enterprise, in the workplace, in the marketplace, and in the supply chain, which is my world. So what is supplier certification? Certification has been in existence for about 50 plus years, coming out of the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s. It was a way to verify that business opportunities that afforded to the minority business community were in fact going to the minority business community. So supplier certification then grew to include other diverse communities, including that of gender, LGBT-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and of course, disability-owned businesses. So for our corporate partner, certification is an assurance that they are actually doing business with those that they intend to do business with. And for our certified suppliers, it's really an opportunity to be able to grow their business and to provide them access to purchasing opportunities from our corporate partners and other diverse vendors. So Disability In is the leading independent certifier of disability-owned business enterprises, and we'll call them DOBEs, including our service-disabled veteran-owned business enterprise community, promoting inclusion and growth through our certification, engagement, and connections. Our certification is a rigorous, highly credible 2-year international certification trusted by our corporate partners and recognized by the $1 Billion Roundtable. Beyond certification, we assist our certified suppliers to become contract ready, to be able to do business with our corporate partners and others. And we help our corporate partners to be able to be more inclusive of disability-owned businesses within their procurement policies and practices within their organizations. And at the end of the day, it's all about making the connections between our suppliers and our corporate partners. And hopefully from those connections, we'll derive business. So the basic criteria for certification is that that business must be at least 51% owned, operated, managed, and controlled by an individual or individuals with a disability and or a service-disabled veteran. It must be a business formed as a legal for-profit entity and must exercise independence from any other business enterprise or individual. The majority owner or owners must be a citizen or a permanent resident of the country in which certification is administered. And just a few other points to note: we certify businesses, not people, nor do we evaluate the viability of a business, whether or not that business will be successful in its endeavors. So as we certify applicants for disability-owned business enterprise certification, obviously we look at the definition of disability and how that aligns with that which we follow. And we follow the definition as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is basically a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. You'll note that 70% of disabilities are non-apparent. And as part of that definition, having a history or record of such an impairment, or even being regarded as having such an impairment, would be considered a disability under the definition. Some examples that I'll note that are listed here on our slide are physical mobility issues, being blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, intellectual development issues, speech difficulties, psychiatric or mental illness, learning and attention issues, epilepsy, cancer, diabetes, post-traumatic stress, HIV/AIDS, or even chronic migraines would all be considered disabilities under this definition. Our certification process, as I mentioned before, is a rigorous process. It is, however, all online, secure and confidential, and the review process of an application and the supporting documentation usually takes between 30 and 90 days from the date of the receipt of a completed application. And it's also conducted by an independent committee. So here at Disability Inn, the staff does not review any of the applications, but it actually is reviewed by a committee of our corporate partners, as well as other certified suppliers, all under the premise of confidentiality. We also recognize certifications from other organizations, the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, WeBank, the Women's Business National Council, NAVOBA, the National Veteran-Owned Business Association, and We Connect International. For those applicants who may hold one or more of these certifications, we accelerate our certification process to be usually under 30 days. A virtual or in-person interview with the majority owners is also conducted for those who are first coming to us to be certified. We do require a number of documents as part of the application process, and these will vary based on the following factors: the business structure of that applicant, whether that applicant is already certified by one of these recognized organizations, whether the applicant is a startup business or is a veteran-owned or VA-verified business, or whether that applicant is based outside of the United States. Our certification is valid for 2 years with a renewal required to maintain that status every 2 years. And we also ask that certified suppliers notify Disability Inn of any significant business changes to the ownership, management, or control of that business at any time throughout the business life cycle. Otherwise, we require that that applicant sign an affidavit every year stating to the fact that no significant changes have been made to that business. So on this slide, you will see a list of documentation that may be required as part of an application. Governance documents regarding that business structure, photo identification, a brief history of the business, resume or resumes of the owners, business license and permits, federal tax returns, stock certificates for corporations, itemized payroll records. For trust, we would want to look at the trust agreement, corporate bylaws, board of directors meeting minutes, management agreements, service agreements, real estate agreements and leases, franchise agreements, bank signatory cards, signed client contracts, and the disability status qualifier, providing validation that that business owner or owners do in fact have a disability. So you'll ask yourself, why all of this documentation? And the reason is around the purpose of why we're certifying this business is to validate that that business is in fact 51% majority owned, operated and controlled by an individual with a disability. So all of these documents can point us in the direction of whether or not that is true for that business application. I mentioned the disability status qualifier is part of that documentation that is required. And this is basically documentation proving that that individual owner or owners does in fact have a disability. So this can be demonstrated in a number of different ways. Probably the most frequently used is the first bullet on this page, the disability in physician certification of condition form, which is completed and signed by a licensed medical professional stating that that applicant individual is in fact a person with a condition that qualifies as a disability. Other documentation that would be accepted would be any records, statements, or documentation issued by a licensed, registered, or certified vocational rehabilitation specialist. Any records or statements from government agencies that issue or provides disability benefits, stating that that applicant individual is in fact a person with a disability. Even an individualized education program can also be submitted if the applicant has in fact a learning disability. And then for our service disabled veteran applications, documents around their service in the military would be required, a DD-214, as well as their service disability ratings letter. And what for our certified suppliers does certification provide to them? As I mentioned earlier, it's really around access to that network of corporate buyers and other disability-owned business enterprises. But here is a list of opportunities beyond that. We obviously have our annual Disability in Global Conference. Every year we have a supplier mentoring program. We have business matchmaking throughout the year, introductions to potential clients. We offer Meet the Partner teleconference series, customized corporate supplier diversity events. We provide an annual Pitch Perfect competition, as well as executive educational programs and capacity building programs for all of our certified suppliers. Also, in addition to that, as I mentioned, we have opportunities for suppliers to meet each other and to do business with each other. So throughout the year, we provide DOBE to DOBE events to facilitate those relationships and connections. So with that, I'll conclude our presentation and provide you with my contact information here if you have any questions around the certification process or the benefits of certification and how it might benefit your business. So thank you.